Welcome to this week's episode of On Record PR. If you are a regular listener of the show, welcome back this week. In case you are joining us for the first time, I am Jennifer Simpson Carr, and today I am joined by my amazing colleagues, Leslie Richard and Izzy Horan. Good morning.
Hi there.
Morning.
How are you?
Good to be here. Well, thanks. On a hot summer morning.
Yes. So it's Monday, July 28th, and you have just returned from the DigiMarCon Conference 2025, which before you both told us that you were registering, I had never heard of. So let's start by maybe just laying a foundation for our listeners like me who had never heard of the conference. What is it? Who is it for? Where were you? Tell us all the things.
Izzy, you want to do it?
Sure. We were at a digital marketing conference in downtown Brooklyn in New York City. It was essentially for all types of industries, marketers in every single industry. We met a lot of people, and we talked about the incoming and sort of exciting technology that this year and the following years have in store. Was very AI heavy. Um, yeah, and it was very interesting.
Yeah. I would say if you haven't attended any digital marketing conferences, it's a nice one to get started with. It's a little smaller than something like Inbound, so there's a little less sort of hustling to get to your sessions, and there's not you don't have to register for sessions, so you know that you're going to get in to see all the speakers that are there, and it's all very contained in one, in a couple of conference rooms uh, in the Marriott in downtown Brooklyn. So if you're looking for if to send your team to their first digital marketing conference, this is a good starter
That's great. And I guess
conference.
to provide some context for our listeners, Leslie, you're our Chief Innovation Officer
Yeah.
and oversee a lot of things and wear many hats. But a big part of your role has been helping the agency really transform with technology over the
Yeah.
last 5 years.
Yep.
And Izzy, you're our digital operations and public relations coordinator. So in both of your roles, you work closely together, really on all things technology and things that will help our agency continue to innovate and be more efficient and make the best use of technology that's available to support us and to support our clients.
Mhm.
So I think to your point, Leslie, any teams, law firm or otherwise, who have professionals who are interested in this space or who are similar to both of you, because we know law firms are growing their support teams now, and there are
Yep.
many individuals who are supporting innovation technology. It sounds like it's a great opportunity for them.
Yeah. I mean, we've been big followers of the Inbound conference, which is a big conference, digital marketing conference that's sponsored by HubSpot. That's a fantastic conference also. It's, I would say, the Inbound conference really has its eye on trends because they're building a lot of this technology. That company is building a lot of this technology. They're very aware of what's coming next. But it's can be overwhelming. It's an enormous conference. There's something like over 250 sessions in the course of 3 days. It takes up the whole convention center in Boston. This year, they're actually having it in San Francisco. So I think DigiMarCon is a really nice entry point. And I would say even for those of us who've attended a lot of conferences in this space, there was still really good, valuable content that was tactical and that can be applied. You can take it home and and use it. Yeah.
So let's talk about that. What were the biggest takeaways from this conference? If you had to boil it down maybe to two, three, four top takeaways, what would those look like?
Izzy, what were they for you?
Um, Honestly, we talked about this a little bit before. Really seeing the shift from sort of the inception of AI being like a consumer tool, uh, and it being sort of this thing that you create content with, and how like all these fun things that you can make now with generative AI. There's been this shift over the past year towards how AI can assist and be a tool instead of creating things. And that was the biggest takeaway I got out of this conference, more like a more agent focused future. So it was honestly, it seemed like a much more hopeful outlook rather than, everything's going to be AI generated in the future. It seemed from this conference and these takeaways and these speakers that things were going to be much more humanized, because the way that we're starting to use AI as a tool rather than this generating thing, that was pretty much the main takeaway for me.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I mean, there was really a clear emphasis on using Gen AI tools for something other than content creation, right? And there was really a focus on the fact that content, particularly, and we'll talk about this at another time, but from an SEO standpoint, your content needs to be humanized. But there were applications and ways of using, for example, ChatGPT that were things that I hadn't thought of. One of them was role playing, which was pretty interesting. In the case of one of the presenters, they gave an example of preparing a pitch for a particular client. They dropped that client's LinkedIn profile into ChatGPT. They dropped their pitch deck into ChatGPT. They said, based on this material, what are the hardest questions I am most likely to get from this prospect during my pitch process? And ChatGPT can interact and role play and be that prospect who's going to ask you those really tough questions. So for high stakes communication, using ChatGPT to anticipate the kinds of objections and obstacles that you're going to have to overcome. And that just doesn't, there's lots of high stakes conversations in our world, right? It's not just in a pitch process. It could be in talking to an executive committee about the need for an initiative of some kind. It could be, any number of places where we really want to make ourselves the most effective we can be in the process of communicating. So that was one that I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Izzy, you played with the role playing tools in ChatGPT more than I did.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You can put anyone's profile, in like LinkedIn profile into ChatGPT. You can put in whatever content you have made, and it's really, really fascinating. There's like a natural language sort of model on mobile where you can actually have the conversation, where the ChatGPT is essentially, yeah, role playing as this person. It's great for interview prep. It's great for anything that where you're potentially interacting with someone who would have questions for you. But there's also, we talk about like this shift from the generating content. A lot of people, I think of ChatGPT as you use it and be like, oh, make me a blog post, write something for me, create something for me. And with these new, not even, yeah, with this new mindset of that's not going to set you apart from your competitors or from anyone. There just opens like a door for a million possibilities that you can use this for, instead of being like, write me this. You could be like, here are the people that are in my industry. What are some things that they possibly would like to learn about? What would they find interesting based on their internet history and what they're posting? Come up with ideas for me that you then write about. And that's sort
That's a
of,
good example.
yeah,
That's a good example.
it's much less robotic. It's much more personalized. And the people that are able to use it in that way are the ones that are going to be able to stand out.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah,
sounds so largely applicable. I mean, Izzy, you and I were speaking earlier this week. For those of our listeners who haven't used something like ChatGPT's communication tool where you're actually speaking to someone, it does not sound like Siri or Alexa. it actually is
Mhm.
natural language. So they have natural pauses. They use words like
Mhm.
and it really does. I've used it in the car for this exact reason. It really does get you in the mindset of speaking to a human.
Yeah.
Um, and the other thing is, I'm just thinking, how broadly applicable it is at law firms. I mean, knowing what my role was in-house as someone who was leading BD, I could see this for any attorney who's getting ready to go into a pitch meeting, or the heads of the business development teams, um, practice group leaders when they're getting ready to lead a meeting, right?
Yeah.
Client team leaders, really, it's just so broadly applicable to how using it in this context would benefit so many people in a law firm setting.
Yeah. And just to be clear, that is available in mobile only, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So if you go looking for that feature on your desktop version of ChatGPT, you won't find it. So look for it in mobile. There were a couple of other things that were pretty interesting. Um, and I think one of the really great ones is taking unstructured data. So things that you can't really categorize easily, right? Unstructured data is kind of uncategorized data that doesn't really have any structure to it. And dropping that into ChatGPT and asking it to organize it for you. So an example of that would be taking responses in social media to whatever it is, to your brand, to your, you could take your LinkedIn page, you could take any number of social interfaces, drop that information into ChatGPT and say, analyze sentiment. What is the sentiment around this brand? What is the sentiment around this post? What is the sentiment around this, whatever the interface is? That was one takeaway, and it was kind of nice because um, right after we came back from the conference, we had a client send us um, a spreadsheet that came directly out of a timekeeper app. So attorneys had been entering their information um, based on a whole variety of activities. Some of it's BD, some of it's marketing, some of it's not, some of it's client related, and asked us to help them make better use of their budget. ChatGPT was excellent for taking that spreadsheet and pulling the data out into manageable categories and helping us analyze that data, and then also creating visualization of that data. Right? A bar graph that said, here's the percentage of your budget that gets spent on travel. Here's the percentage of your budget that gets spent on, client lunches, whatever. So that was another really useful tool. I think it probably would have taken me a full day, if not longer. If I had to do that by hand, it probably took me an hour and a half with ChatGPT. So
It's a great example of
yeah,
increased efficiency,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Tenfold.
Tenfold, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
So I know that we like to keep these conversations fairly brief,
Yeah.
so we can let our listeners get back to their day. But our next episode will be also discussing some additional takeaways related to SEO. So thank you to our listeners for joining us today. If you're interested in learning more about the conference and some key takeaways for law firms on SEO, please tune in next week. If you found today's episode helpful, please subscribe to the show, consider sharing it with a colleague or a friend, leave us a review on iTunes. All of those things help our show continue to grow and support you as our listeners. We welcome your feedback and ideas at podcasts@onrecordpr.com. Thank you, Leslie and Izzy, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This episode is brought to you by Furia Rubel Communications, a public relations and marketing agency serving law firms and businesses worldwide. With an expert team positioned throughout the U.S. and supported by an international faculty, Furia Rubel enhances our clients' brands through integrated communications by providing expert guidance in crisis management and high-profile litigation, protecting brand and reputation, and supporting internal marketing teams. To learn more, visit furiarubel.com. On Record Record PR is produced by Jennifer Simpson Carr and Matt Henderson, with support from the team at Furia Ruble Communications. This episode is edited by Isabelle Horan and Christian Yamula. Visit www.onrecordpr.com for resources and more information.